All right, it's Sunday night. You know what that means. It's Lions Talk Live. You got the Sarge here, Tony Libretto coming at you, and myself, Dan Thornton. Thank you all for tuning in this Sunday night. We're going to go tonight for maybe 30, 45 minutes. As you guys know, it's one of the less busy times of the year for the NFL as far as news, Detroit Lions, all that stuff in between. So, anyways, Tony, one of the topics we're going to talk about tonight is, can these Detroit Lions, I know everybody's talking about playoffs, but do you think the playoffs are in our future?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I think they're going to be kings of the North. I think Minnesota is going to be their toughest competition. I think Green Bay is taking a step back with Jordan Love, and I think Chicago's just not there yet. They don't have, it still goes through Justin Fields, and I just don't think he's the quarterback that's going to get them over the top. I see them maybe losing one game in the division. Just like they only lost one game last year. I don't see them taking a step back from that. Maybe they lose one. Maybe they split with Minnesota. Other than that, they're going to win. They're going to be division winners. They may even make it to having a home. They'll probably have a home game in the playoffs, and I see them winning at least one playoff game.
Yeah, let me ask you this, Tone. If you had to analyze the NFC North right now, who is the number one threat to Detroit making it a run for winning the division, in your opinion?
Probably Minnesota. Like I said, I think Green Bay is going backwards. Not to knock on Jordan Love, but he just doesn't have any experience. They did try to stock up on a couple of offensive weapons for him, getting a couple of tight ends in the draft. They do still have Aaron Jones, and he's still a beast. But I just don't think I don't think he's the one that's gonna bring him out there. So I think with the guys that we've got around us and on the team, Minnesota, I think, because Kirk Cousins, he's always, he always produces. No matter what you think of him, he always makes the numbers. He always gets the numbers, and it's a contract year for him too. So they've gotten a couple. I don't know what they're going to do with Dalvin Cook. I hear rumors that he might be not there, but I don't think they're going to get rid of him. So they'll be the biggest threats. They do still have Aaron Jones, and he's still a beast. But I just don't.
Tony, you hearing me?
I hear you.
Feedback here, and I'm trying to figure it out. Sorry about everybody who's watching. Sorry, I'm trying to multitask.
I can hear myself
figure it out, but at any rate, let's move on from that. Sorry, guys. One of the problems with trying to run this is I get distracted, and hey, what can you do? All right, so some analysts have come out from USA Today and talked about how the Detroit Lions draft class is actually one of the worst in the NFL for this past 2023 draft. Tone, do you think there's any validity to this, or do you just think Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell were able to look for players other people missed as far as value-wise?
I think especially with Lions fans that don't like the way they drafted this year, there's been such a glut of talent on this team for so long, and the way that we've drafted in the past was always out of need. We have to get this guy because we need somebody to fill a hole or whatever. And this year, Brad Holmes took it a step. Took it what winning teams do. They took the player they wanted on their team. They didn't care where they drafted them. They had a board, and they went with their board. They taking Gibbs at 12. He was probably going to go in the top 20. Even most mock drafts had him going in the first round. There's always players that get drafted in the first round higher or lower than they're supposed to, or whatever. And I'd really like to focus on Jack Campbell, because I've watched his highlights. I mean, I haven't sat here for hours and hours watching games, but I've watched his highlights. The one thing that we couldn't do last year, we couldn't stop the run at all last year.
It
Our
was a
defense
problem.
got better as the year went on, and we picked up so many defensive backs through free agency that are probably all going to start for us, and they're all better than the guys we had last year. So what we needed is somebody in the middle to run that defense. And that guy is a monster. He's 6'5", 240, 250. I can't remember exactly, but he's a giant. And watching his highlights, everyone's like, oh, he's too slow. 0.2 of a second slower than the fastest running back that we have.
Right.
0.2 of a second. That's like one step. And let me tell you about that one step. He's not covering wide receivers. He doesn't have to have 4.3 speed. He doesn't have to have 4.4 speed. Watching the highlights, he against Ohio State, CJ Stroud, who is, where'd he go in the draft? Number 2.
Right.
So CJ Stroud, Iowa playing, he did a 15-yard drop back into the middle of the field and picked off a CJ Stroud pass. He only needs to, on passing plays, he only needs to cover, slant passes, tight ends out of the backfield, or tight ends crossing, or running backs. And he was side to side on the highlight videos that I watched. He can zero in on a running back coming out of the backfield,
right?
And he would tackle him for like a 1-yard gain or a 2-yard loss or whatever. I'm a huge Jack Campbell fan, and maybe he doesn't work out. No one knows until the games are played, but that guy is going to make the difference of this team. I think he's going to be a leader from day one. Someone's going to lose their job, probably Rodriguez. I know everyone fell in love with Rodriguez, and I love him. I think he's a great guy, but maybe Hard Knocks made us love him a little more than we. Maybe he's only an average player technically in the league. If he was on the Philadelphia Eagles, do you think Rodriguez would be starting? Probably not.
I think there's a lot of validity in what you just said about Rodriguez. I mean, he was the darling of Hard Knocks.
Yeah.
The Philadelphia game, he comes in and he does make some plays that game. It just felt like, to me, the longer the season went on, we heard less and less about him. We saw less and less plays from him. And whether or not that just means, offensive coordinators figured out how to get around him, what he's good at, and what his weaknesses are. Some of it could simply just be other players started making more plays and gave him less opportunity. But I do think it's clear that as far as Holmes and Campbell felt, they had to upgrade that position. When I look at the story about USA Today and what they wrote, my opinion, Lions weren't worried about getting the best players available. They were worried about the best players that fit what they want out of a player and how are they going to be able to use them. When Gibbs got drafted, I'm sure you and I talked during the broadcast. I think everybody was caught off guard.
Oh yeah.
But I think if whatever, it's been a week and a half now since that pick happened. I think most of us think if you line that kid out wide with Jameson Williams, St. Brown, and whoever else, man, that's just going to be difficult for the vast majority of defense. I'll say 90% of defenses are going to struggle guarding that kind of speed and quickness, especially if you overload one side of the field with them. Absolutely.
I see a lot of offensive plays with Montgomery and Gibbs in the lineup at the same time. I really do. And the guy that we took, the undrafted free agent out of Minnesota, Ibrahim, I think he makes the team as the third down or as the third running back. I don't know how he didn't get drafted. I mean, obviously, we can speculate that all day, but having him there, Reynolds, or maybe even the Jefferson, the rookie from last year, maybe those guys make a step up. But I think Montgomery and Gibbs are way above what Williams and Swift were for us last year, especially if they stay healthy. I mean, if Gibbs stays healthy all 17 games and doesn't miss any time, any significant time, he's already way a step above Swift. And I loved Swift. I liked him a lot, but I knew we needed someone better in the draft.
All right. Now, when it comes to the Swift thing, I look at it this way, even though, I'll give Doug and Dr. Detroit some credit in the comment section for what they're saying. I think when Weatherspoon went off the board, Holmes, Campbell, and whoever else was in on the decision said, hey, we need to reevaluate what we're going to do here. So they probably made some calls. They were able to get the second-round pick by trading back and bought themselves basically, whatever it is, 45 minutes an hour to reevaluate where are we going to go now that Witherspoon's gone.
Mhm.
The other part when it comes to Swift, I look at it this way. You rented a car for whatever it was, 3 years. You used a second-round pick on that car. You traded it away, and you got a new car while still getting half the value back with a fourth-round pick.
Yeah.
So you got to use him. He didn't turn out to be the star we were all hoping. I think he's got a lot of playmaking ability, but unfortunately for Swift, he just can't stay on the field long enough to really use that to anybody's advantage. So it is what it is. So let's keep going on here. Let's talk about, some of the other news coming out and around. We talked about USA Today saying Lions draft was not the greatest, but let's move on to this. Looking for things for everybody to talk about. In your opinion, what do you think will be the strongest position areas for the team this upcoming season?
Strongest as in position battles or just the strongest units?
Probably let's start with units.
Obviously our offensive line is still the best unit on our team. We didn't take a step back from that at all. If Vaitai is healthy, he's going to be great. Glasgow can fill in for any interior position. Glasgow can fill in for. The dude we got from William and Mary, Sanders. I forgot how to say his name.
You're right.
So whatever his name is. Sorry. He sounds like he's a pretty good pickup in later draft. He can be. He can definitely at least make the practice squad, it sounds like. And we have other offensive linemen that have starting experience that are going to be our second tier guys. So our offensive line is still probably the best unit on the team. As next up in line for that, I think our defensive backs are probably the number 2 unit. We probably just picked up 4 starters, and that doesn't even include Joseph and Walker. We've got so many defensive backs now. That's going to be the biggest battle in camp, is who's going to make it out of there as our starters. Walker might be the odd man out. We've talked about that before. Yeah. It's almost an embarrassment of riches now, which feels great. And I hope they all stay healthy so I don't eat those words later in the season. But Mosley, let's talk about, because he kind of gets forgotten about a little bit with all the other people that we've picked up. Mosley was a starter on one of the best defenses in the league last year before he got hurt. He started on the 49ers team that everyone thought, that some people said was the best defense in the league. Not maybe that stat wise, ranked wise or whatever, but other than Philadelphia, 49ers had the best defense at least in the conference, and he was a starter on that team. So, don't forget about him. Don't sleep on him. And with all the other guys picking up, and Brian Branch might have been our best draft pick, especially where we got him. So I would say they're number 2. If we go number 3, probably either wide receivers or running back, because I think our running back room just got so much stronger and better. I would probably, especially running behind that line. Right. I think it's going to be. I think the offense is fine, 100%. Especially getting Laporta too. A lot of people didn't like that pick, but you know what? If he goes out there and catches 50 balls, I'll be happy.
I think with Laporta, the hard thing, whether you're a scout, fan, or whatever, when it comes to that kid, you really got to watch film and just watch what he does, because their offense was so horrible. You can't really reflect on stats. You can't, go to highlight reels to see what he does in this situation or under duress or whatever. Because, that kid, if you do watch some games on them, he is legitimately double or triple covered at times, especially in key situations. Yeah. Because I think every defense knew he was about it for them.
He was their whole offense. If you stop Laporta, you probably beat Iowa. That was how important he was, and he still made plays.
Right. And to me, that's why I think, are you splitting hairs with probably some of those tight ends? Mm-hmm. Probably. But as far as the unknown factor, he's probably got the biggest room, in my opinion, for upside, just because he's going to have a whole offense around him, and that's going to draw a lot of coverage off him, which is something they haven't seen in a while. One thing I do want to talk about real quick, my opinion of the draft, at least when you look at the Lions approach the offensive players they brought around, this is my thought. I don't think they're planning on getting rid of Goff anytime soon because all these guys, whether you're talking about Gibbs, Laporta, or whoever, they all seem to excel at yards after the catch. And what type of passes does Goff? It changed a little bit last year. Later in the year, he started throwing downfield more, but he really seems to prefer the short to intermediate passes. And if you're going to get players that excel at catching those and then trying to shake open from getting away from tackles, it seems to me the Lions are giving us a tell that maybe they're not planning on getting rid of Goff in the next year or two. What are your thoughts?
I mean, why would we, right? He's still in his 20s, I think. I think he's 28. So, I mean, he could be hitting his stride right now. The 28 to 32 or 33 is for quarterbacks. It's still you're in your prime, and he has the experience now. He's been in the offense for 2 years with Ben Johnson, and I think the sky is the limit for him if he can continue with not having any mistakes. Like what was it? The last 9 games of the year, he didn't throw a pick.
Yeah,
I mean that's ridiculous. That's Aaron Rodgers type ball security, and he's got the best offensive line on I think in the league at this point. And I wouldn't be surprised if in the middle of the season or after the season's over they extend him. It's great that we drafted Hendon Hooker. He was a steal in the 3rd round.
I agree.
But he might not ever be the actual starter for Detroit. Goff might just run away, get an extension, and play another 5 years for the Lions.
One of the things I think Brad Holmes is doing a very good job. And again, just my view here. Like you said, we now put every weapon in the world around Goff that seems to fit the type of quarterback he is. They're not trying to force him to do something he isn't. The other part is they hedge their bet a little bit, I think, by getting Hooker. If Goff, Goff's now got, I'm sure he's aware, I've got to perform at a high level this next season or two, or my future here is null and void. I'm having to move on here. Hooker, if he comes out and shows everybody, man, I should have been, a 1st round pick or whatever if it wasn't for this knee. He comes out and he's just throwing the ball for the next season or two in preseason or wherever it may be in practice and shows that he should supersede Goff. Really, a season or two from now, the Lions are in an ideal situation.
Yeah, absolutely.
They can't lose. Somebody's going to win that battle, and the Lions should be the beneficiaries of it. If you had a pick right now, which one of these two guys you'd want, say in 2026, where are you going?
26. I mean, there's a lot of seasons involved there. So that, if Goff is still playing at a high level, if he's still on the team in 2026, I don't think Hooker is.
Right.
Let's go with that. Dr. Detroit says J-Mo's not a Goff guy. I want him to elaborate on it a little because I want to know if he's one of those guys that thinks that Goff can't throw downfield or something. But
Hooker does throw the deep ball pretty well. If you watch his spirals.
Oh yeah.
That thing.
But I know a lot of people last year, there was I think it was the touchdown pass to J-Mo that, it was perceived that Goff underthrew him a little bit because of his speed, right? You got to remember, Goff only had like 2 weeks of practice with the guy before he was out on the field. This year, they're going to have a whole offseason together. Maybe he catches up with him, Goff did have some good downfield throws last year.
Remember the one, what's the one outdoors to Khalif Raymond? I want to say it was at the Jets. Maybe I'm wrong with that, but
yeah,
he got better with
50 yards in the air, right? It was about 50 yards in the air, caught him in stride, and Khalif Raymond's not a slow guy. So trying to see what he says. Yes, ducks downfield. Not every downfield pass is for any quarterback, for that matter, is going to be on point every time. Those receivers, I think if he gets more reps with J-Mo in the offseason, and they've already been practicing with each other, he'll adjust to J-Mo's speed more so than the other way around. J-Mo isn't going to have to slow down running routes for Goff. I think that's kind of silly. Hooker does have a better arm downfield, it looks like on game tape, but give Goff a chance to get a whole year under his belt training in the offseason with JMO and see where that takes him.
Right. Not everybody's going to be, Eric Kramer, Ronnie Pete, and just, destroy teams with their awesomeness throwing the football. But it is what it is. So
you love some Eric Kramer, man.
Eric Kramer, I mean, there really should be, until the Lions win another playoff game, there should be a Lord of the Rings size statue outside of Ford Field honoring his greatness. Because he's the only guy alive who's ever worn a Lions uniform to win one. All right,
right?
Moving on from that. Talk about, in your view, the draft picks here. Who do you see out of the draft class this year that has the potential to start? Because obviously a season ago we had, what was it, 5 guys alone on defense that started, 6 altogether. It's going to be hard for another group to do that. But if you had a guess, who do you see starting by, say, the middle of the season for Detroit?
Well, so I'll start with the first one, Gibbs. I don't know if starter is the right word because him and Montgomery, I think, are just going to split duties. Running backs starting, or whatever. I think they'll both just split the reps. So we can count him as a starter or Montgomery as a starter or whatever. But I think Gibbs is playing enough where he could be a starter, right? So Campbell, I think, is starting day one. I've already pled my case for him earlier.
He's really going to screw up to not.
What's that?
He's really going to have to screw up to not start.
Yeah. So second round, Branch, starter. I don't know if this is the right word for him, but he's going to be playing every pass down. So he's going to be playing. Laporta is probably our number 1 tight end. I love Mitchell. I think he's going to be great. We're going to we could probably do a lot of double tight end sets, but I think Laporta is the number 1 tight end. Then you get further down. So I think we've got 4 starters in the first 2 rounds already. Hooker obviously is not going to be the starter. The defensive tackle that we took that we traded up for the 3rd round, Martin.
Yep.
He's not the guy people think they may have not wanted, but he's a run stuffer, first and second down. Definitely, maybe not starter, but he's going to be playing a lot, especially by mid-season. I think Aleem McNeil is going to take a step up. And I talked to you the other day about Levi. Maybe there's something we don't know with Levi. Maybe he's actually healthy now, and that's why they didn't take Jalen Carter at 6. But that Martin dude, he's gonna swallow up the middle of that field, I think, no problem. So he's gonna play. But as far as starters go mid-season, I think we at least have 4 that are starters, but not maybe not the starter of the game, but they're going to be significant 50% or more of the snaps played in the game on offense or defense, depending on which one. The rest, they're probably more backup related, the offensive tackle, the wide receiver. I see a couple people mentioning Green. I think he's going to be good. And the other undrafted guy that I think is going to make the team, I think we have 2 undrafted free agents that are making the team. I think Ibrahim makes the team. And I think that wide receiver from Oregon, Costa, I think he's going to make the team as well. So
when you look at what the Lions gave them to get both of those 2 guys, running back got, I think it was $100,000 guaranteed contract. The receiver got, I want to say it's $83,000, which for undrafted player, those are good numbers. They're not going to the practice squad.
So I think we have 4 quality. I think we have 4 players that if they're not starters, they are playing most of the game. Or I'm sorry, I'll even go 5. I think that defensive tackle Martin is going to be. So I'll go with 5. Which is ridiculous since we are a team that is in contention now. If you look at a lot of the teams that are winning, that are I like to say the top 2, 49ers and the Eagles, they don't need any rookie to start right now, right?
Right.
But we have such a unique position that we're on the cusp last year we can still have 4 or 5 guys that are out of this draft that will contribute every game.
All right, so if you guys are in the chat, you already know the drill. If you like what we're doing here, hit that thumbs up if you want. If you haven't subscribed, go ahead. Yada yada yada. You all know what to do. All right, we talked about this a little bit last week, and I'd like to talk about it again. It's my opinion based on what we look at, what they're drafting, what these guys do. We talked about the Goff factor with a lot of these offensive players, but now let's talk about that with the defensive side. Mm-hmm. You get Campbell, somebody who's, I believe his sole purpose is to make sure that we can stop getting gashed up the middle of the field so much on runs. Obviously, what happened with Carolina wasn't just in the middle, but if you can stop the middle, it gets a little bit easier to contain the outside if you don't have to overload the middle. So you get that. You get Martin. It seems like they're targeting, hey, we're going to force you if you're going to run to get out wide. And I think they're going with so many safeties. One, maybe they're not 100% sold that Tracy Walker is going to be playing at a high level come the season opener because he's still recovering. But the other part is I think there's a real possibility you're going to see if we can shut down the run significantly on first down and force more and more teams into, 2nd and 8, 3rd and 6. You're going to see a lot of hybrid packages out of us where we have 2 to 3, maybe 4 safeties on the field, go with a bunch of corners. That's going to make it real tough for opposing offenses to throw on obvious passing downs. What are your thoughts on that, Tone?
I agree. I think we could have 6 DBs on the field at the same time, and we're not sacrificing anything with that. I think, like I said, I'm high on Mosley, Sutton, Kirby Joseph. We got Gardner Johnson, and then Brian Branch comes in, along with Walker. If Walker is the guy there, any of those 6 guys could probably be starting on almost any other NFL team. So it's of course I haven't played a game yet, but it's almost embarrassing how great our DBs are, in my opinion, than they were a year ago or 2 years ago. I think it was 2 years ago. We were pulling guys off the street, like, hey, you want to stop, selling insurance and come play football for the Lions? I don't know. I hope I'm not over exaggerating or overjoyed by our defensive backs, but I just don't see teams being able to throw on us like they have the last couple of years. When it comes down to the end of the game, so we lost a couple of games last year because our defense couldn't stop anybody at the very end, especially like the Minnesota game or the Seattle. We couldn't stop them. And now we have at least a defensive back position. We have guys that can cover guys that aren't going to give up those big plays at the end of the game.
You talk about 2 years ago. Think about when we played the Ravens at Ford Field and that final drive. We forced them into 2nd long, 3rd and long, and then obviously 4th and 25. They hit the first down pass. Just think about how much the defense has changed, the personnel has changed, the secondary has changed in just 2 years. So it's a reflection of what they had, and thankfully the brilliance of the front office coaching staff to develop younger talent, draft better talent, etc.
Yeah.
But moving on to some other stories here, the Lions, we've still got quite a bit of salary cap space left. So you guys in the comments section can jump in on this. Let me know your thoughts. My thought is if the Lions are really going to make a strong push and they believe they're not just capable of winning this division, but winning some playoff games and getting the Super Bowl, and 2 years ago it would have been crazy to say Detroit Lions have a chance at the Super Bowl. But I think they've got enough pieces, depending on matchups, a couple passes go their way, tips, whatever, they could be in the Super Bowl. But do you think we can do it with Nate Sutfield or Hendon Hooker as the backup quarterback?
So what I've read lately or seen lately on the internet, it sounds like Hendon Hooker is on pace to actually physically be able to play a game by the time the season starts. If he can take over, if he can play, if he's healed and he can play, and and he takes over for Sudfeld, right? Like if he can make it back to be the number 2 guy on the team, I think obviously he's a way stronger candidate to come in and win a game than Sudfeld is.
Right.
I think Sudfeld could be the odd man out in that.
Guy's stealing money being a backup quarterback in the NFL, if you're asking me.
Right. So yeah, I Super Bowl. If Hendon Hooker is number 2 and he's 100% healthy, then Super Bowl isn't such a bad. It's not something we can't believe in.
You know, if there's one area of the team that you feel that could hold us back from making a legitimate run in the playoffs, what would it be at this point? Because I'm looking at the team. There doesn't seem to be many glaring holes at this point.
Right. You're saying what would hold us back?
Yeah. What could slow us down?
I think the only thing that would slow the team down is if we get hit by the injury bug, like in a bad way. Like if we lose, I'm not gonna say anyone's name. I don't want to jinx anything. But if we get hit hard by the injury bug, especially later in the season, that's the only thing that I think that would keep us from making the playoffs. We do have some good depth, but especially the defensive line, it's funny. A lot of around the draft is revolved around a lot of things, but no one's talking about Houston. Like I saw someone say a minute ago, no one's talking about Hutchinson. I think Hutchinson's going to have an incredible season too, as long as he stays healthy, which I don't know why he wouldn't. But if we lose key players on defense, that's what's going to hold us up, because we have so many guys now that are year 2 on our defense that are supposed to be stepping up. We lose some of those guys, we're going to be hurting.
So here's a question for everybody watching. I've been trying to think about with the parts that we do have. Do I still think we're going to play a lot of man-to-man? Yes. Do I think we're going to mix it up a lot more this year? I do believe that. The other part is, if you got Campbell out there, let's assume Anzalone, giving somebody a big cannoli, is the other linebacker out there. What do you do with James Houston? I know we had somebody ask about how many sacks he's going to get, but here's my question. I'm not getting that kid off the field under any circumstances. He's just too much of a game changer. Mm-hmm. But where are we going to play him at?
That's the $1 million question, really. I think so. Say we have our starting defensive line as of right now, not including the rookie that we drafted. Aleem McNeil is going to take a spot, probably Bugs.
Yep.
But we also have Kaminsky that re-signed, and he was great for us, even with a broken hand. Can you imagine two real hands to work with? Hutch is on one side, Pascal or Okwara. I mean, I don't know where we put Houston. It's tough. Houston's going to be a monster, but I don't know if we have him on the field other than passing downs. It would be great to have him out there the whole time, but Anzalone just signed an extension, which to me makes it sound like the Lions are only going to use Houston as a pass specialist.
9 drinks. I see Steve-O talking about Williams from the Jets. The Lions have more cap space right now than they have at any point that I can remember, maybe the last 3 to 4 years going into a season. So I think you guys got a good thought here that the Lions might not be done constructing this team. They may be waiting for some teams that are in a little bit of cap hell to figure out who can we keep and who are we going to get rid of. And that's going to be the big question. Someone like Williams, could we go get him? Sure. But keeping on with Houston, I think back to the last game of the season even though we weren't going to make the playoffs, unfortunately, we knew we took the field at Green Bay. The Lions hierarchy or coaching staff, what do you want to say, moved Houston to the weak side backer spot and still let them go after the quarterback, still let them get in there. But they did drop him into coverage quite a bit in that game. So that indication that the Lions said, hey, we don't need 2 or 3 new linebackers. We'll keep Anzalone if we can get Campbell, great. But if our third linebacker just might be James Houston, what do you think?
Yeah, Yeah, I agree with that. He definitely has proven that he can track people down in the open field.
Yeah.
One of my favorite plays of his last year, again, was on Justin Fields against Chicago. Justin Fields, was running all over us. He did both games.
Yep.
But when he rolled out to the left on that play and he was he was still in the backfield and Houston just went right at him and took him down, that to me showed me that Houston can make plays anywhere on the field, because that was an open field tackle, and Justin Fields makes everybody miss him, right? But Houston took him down, and that was one of my favorite plays on the defense last year. So I definitely think he could be a playmaker, but it's probably going to be a rotational thing, because, like I said, we got Branch now, we got
Yep.
Jack Campbell, we've got all those defensive backs that have to be on the field. They're maybe Branch and Houston rotate each other. That could be crazy, but maybe that's what it is, because Branch is more of a, he can come up to the box and make that play too. So I think they're going to rotate, they're going to keep everyone fresh, and everyone's going to make plays. I want Houston on the field more than he's not on the field, because of what he showed last year, especially after he came out of the injury. I just don't know where we play everybody. Which is I guess it's a great thing to have the problem, but you just never know who's going to make the play and where they're going to make the play and who's going to be on the field at that time.
Obviously Aaron Glenn, Campbell, Holmes all want guys that can play multiple spots. That's why once I sat for about 10, 15 minutes when Gibbs was picked, I was like, yeah, this guy isn't going to be a running back. He's going to be a wide receiver, running back. Heck, and he might be the quarterback on some Wildcat packages. I could see that. He's just going to be a problem. And I think Houston, no matter what you do, you got to have him on the field, just because he is a game changer. I do know what you're saying about the time he came from behind and got Fields. But I also think when we talked about the fact that we might go with a lot of second or third downs with 3 or 4 safeties on the field, along with Kaminsky, Hutch, Houston, or, Romeo, Aquaro, whoever, going after the quarterback. I think a lot of it has to be because Lions may be saying Justin Fields and Chicago are a problem for him. Because last year, even though we won both games, let's not deny the fact that at Ford Field, Fields already had 100, I think, yards with a little time left to go in the first quarter. So they understand they've got to contain him to keep Chicago at bay. Kirk Cousins, you just got to stop the entire team. Cousins isn't going to run on you, and then who knows with Green Bay and Love. But at any rate, if there was a free agent or two that you think the team should pursue, before training camp begins, is there anybody out there that catches your eyes?
Not right now. I don't know. I'd rather not sign anyone right now until they get to training camp and maybe some preseason games. And, if we unfortunately lose someone through injury, then maybe go out there. I know Frank Clark is still out there. I think if he's not, someone tell me that, but I'm pretty sure Frank Clark is still out there. Maybe he could be someone that we pick up depending on injury situations in the preseason. But right now, I don't know if there's a defensive tackle out there better than what we have right now. So, because that's the only reason we would take another free agent right now, is if there's someone out there that's better than what we have. And I don't know if that's the case this year, which is another wonderful thing to have a problem with. I just can't. I don't picture. I pushed a lot about pre-draft about Teddy Bridgewater, but we have Hendon Hooker now. And Bridgewater has the starting experience and the years of experience in the league, but as a backup, if Hooker's ready day one, like they say he's on track to be, then we don't even need to go out and get him. So I don't know if there's anyone out there right now in free agency that we would need. Frank Clark would be great to have on the team, but again, whose place is he taking? Because he's an edge guy, right? So we've got about 5 or 6 guys. We'd have to lose probably 2 or 3 of them before we would need to go out and grab one.
All right, so the big question, like I said, we're only going to go for about 45 minutes or so today just because I've got to spend a little time with the lady tonight. We're going to watch Renfield.
I got ribs on the grill, so,
So everybody is invited over to Tony's house. He's cooking for everybody. I'll give you the GPS coordinates here at the end of the broadcast. I almost don't want to talk about this, but I saw something on media about it 2 days ago. Now that the Stafford trade, all the details are finalized. And yes, the Rams got a Super Bowl out of it.
Mm-hmm.
The Lions got a ton out of it. In hindsight, looking back, what are your thoughts on that trade 2.5 years later?
Yeah, you're right. They won a Super Bowl. They got the immediate gratification from it,
Right.
But we definitely have the long term. You could say both teams won, but I think that with the Lions, the Rams got what they wanted, and now we got what we wanted. We've gotten so much better without Stafford here, and I was always a big Stafford supporter.
Yep.
But as soon as he was traded, I was like, he's not on our team anymore. I don't care. So we won that trade in the grand scheme of things, saying because our team is better now than it was 2 years ago. It 100%. Stafford's last year on our team, we were horrible, and we were horrible the first year without him, obviously, because it was a 100% rebuild with a new coach. If Stafford was on our team, I don't know if they would be any better than they are with Goff right now. I think Goff is right now better than Stafford is right now. And that's maybe because Stafford's coming off a major injury.
Right.
But even if they're equal in playing stature, we've got so many better players out of this deal than we would have had if we had just kept Stafford the whole time.
I'll look at it this way. I'm trying to look at it from a GM's perspective. They probably realized Stafford, I want to say his last 2 or 3 seasons, Detroit had the back injuries, other injuries pop up. He was a warrior, gutted through it for over a decade here. Took the abuse, took the mismanagement, the poor coaching, whatever you want to throw at it.
Mm-hmm.
The guy endured it. So I think we all were happy to see him go and have his moment in the sun, win a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
From just a GM standpoint, and the guys in the chat, if I get this wrong, help me out. I want to say we got Jameson Williams out of it, Goff. We got, I guess, Gibbs, you could say, and the tight end, Laporta. We got Iffy out of it, and I want to say the other player was Barnes. Maybe I'm not right on 100% of that, but you got all of that, plus the resurrection, I guess you could say, of Goff's career, where he wasn't a Pro Bowl alternate last year, so you got a Pro Bowl quarterback out of it, as well as, and Goff, I want to say, is like 6 years younger than Stafford and far less injured at this point in his career.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody wanted to see Stafford go. I think if we could have all, and the hot trade too, Kool-Aid, yep, you're right. I think we all would have loved to have seen him stay, seen him win here. But just from a program, franchise standpoint, you got, 6, 7 players, including a Pro Bowl quarterback, all for one guy. Yes, that one guy won a Super Bowl, but if I'm the Rams, I guess I would be asking this. If Goff remains there with that team, would they have won the Super Bowl anyways? Obviously, the coach didn't think so. But,
right.
I mean, that in hindsight, those 6, 7 players all for one guy, and one guy who's fairly injured at this point in his career, just seems like a lot. Would you have made the trade knowing what you know now if you're the GM of the Rams?
That's a tough one. Like, I mean, they had so many superstars on that team that won the Super Bowl. Could Goff have thrown it to Cooper Kupp, 200 times a season? Probably. I mean, Cooper Kupp that year was out of his mind. He was offensive player of the year that year. And you still had Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey on defense, along with all the other guys, obviously. But they probably could have won with Goff that year, to be perfectly honest. Because, again, I think Stafford and Goff are basically the same guy. I know Stafford still has the cannon arm.
Yep.
So there was that, but I mean, I think if you're the GM for the Rams, you don't look back and go, "Oh, I probably screwed up by trading all these picks away for Stafford," because they won the Super Bowl. So that's what they wanted. But Goff could have definitely been the guy. They didn't even really have much of a running game that year, right? They won the Super Bowl. Was Akers? Wasn't that the year that Akers was hurt most of the time? Can't remember now off the top of my head, but I just don't think. I mean, good for us that they made that trade. I think because I think we're a better team now that we don't have Stafford. Not that we don't have Stafford, but with the things that we got for the Stafford trade, we're a better team than we were with him.
I think that's what at the end of the day, that's what it all comes down to is what did Detroit do to help speed up the process, and the fact that they got, like I said, 6-7 guys that are all appear to be contributing for the next foreseeable future for this franchise versus one guy who, the town loves him. Everybody's going to, hope that when he goes to the Hall of Fame, he goes in as a Lion. But at the end of the day, the needs of the team seem to supersede, what would have been good for Matt Stafford. But anyway,
I don't know, I see what Mr. D Cool is saying, but I think Goff is more than an above average quarterback. If that's what he's referring to. I mean, I think he's a top 10 quarterback in the league, and if he made the Pro Bowl last year. I don't think he's above average. I think I'm not going to say elite because I think elite is probably a top 5 kind of guy, but I think he's definitely a top 10 guy in the league. I think he's better than a lot of the guys out there. And so I don't know if above average is the right word to use for Goff. I think he's more, it takes more to be a good quarterback, more than above average. And I don't know if above average and elite, I don't know if there's something in between there, what you want to word it. But tier two at best, tier 2 is great. I mean,
compared to what we're used to.
Compared to what, but in the league, I think there's 25 teams in the league that would take a tier 2 quarterback because it's his knowledge of the game. It's his game management. You don't have to be able to gun it 90, 60, 70 yards downfield to be an elite quarterback. I think his game management is overlooked a lot. He controls the game. He controls the offense. He doesn't make mistakes. He made a few early in the year, but going 9 straight games, I'll go back to it, going 9 straight games without an interception, and we threw the ball a lot. I think he's more than above average. Tier 2, tier 1, if you say tier 2, tier 1 is what? Mahomes, Hurts, Josh Allen.
It depends on who you want to put in that, and I don't know if Aaron Rodgers still fits there, but you could say
tier 2 is still better than Dak Prescott, still better than I don't know who else I'm going to throw in with that. But
I think the point is it's hard to get that guy, the elite guy.
Yeah.
And that's the only thing I will say about the Lions situation when it comes to Goff right now. Hey, we took Hooker. Can he be, Tom Brady for us? Can he, Goff gets hurt at some point, he come in and just right the ship, lead us to a bunch of wins. Then maybe Goff doesn't get the chance back. Maybe he's the new Drew Bledsoe. Whatever it is, I think there's a lot of teams, like you said, that would probably take Goff over their guy right now or whoever they have, whether it's Tampa Bay, or whoever out there. Yes, Goff did have some drop picks. I'll also say this. I've watched Tom Brady, Warren Moon throw a lot of, picks that got dropped. So it happens, just like touchdowns and regular receptions get dropped as well. So anyway, all right, well, we're going to close down this Lions Talk Live. It's, like we all know, it's going to be a little dead news-wise until we get through probably towards the end of June as we start getting towards training camp. When the schedule comes out, we'll analyze that. We're going to announce a couple live broadcasts where you guys can come out and watch us just like we did the day before the draft. If the Lions' first game of the season is away, Tony and I are going to do a live broadcast at a restaurant in Southwest Michigan. We'll reveal that information once we get the schedule and get it set. If it's
Right
the
on.
second game of the season's away, we'll set something up and invite you guys all to come on out. So I want to thank you all for tuning in. If you haven't subscribed, if you haven't hit the like button, you know what to do. I'm not going to bore you with it, but hope you all enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Take care, and we'll see you next time on Lions Talk Live.